is this idea where, we have some volunteers, and then for whatever reason they quit. And then you feel like as a business owner, you have to start over again. And then some people come, but you're approaching the next group of people exactly the same thing, the same way. So the outcome is exactly the same outcome. People will quit. And you try that again. And eventually you get so fed up, you get so tired about like, man, this doesn't work, and building the team doesn't work. And yeah, I always knew that I should be doing things out of myself. And then we almost stop doing the right thing because the outcome that we're trying to do, we are not getting. But the reality is, the problem is not the outcome. The problem is how we're presenting and how we're developing our coaching team.
Yeah, you're speaking like a career track. People have a career track.
Correct.
Like I start as a private and I work my way up to being a first sergeant. There's this career path that's created instead of hoping to get lucky and then finding needs and filling needs and it just being this very chaotic thing, like you're juggling, and then somebody throws you another ball and you got to juggle some more balls, and somebody throws you another ball and eventually you can't juggle them anymore. And that's what it feels like as a business owner when you don't have this thing you're speaking of.
And the more those things happen, right, George, is this idea of the more frustrated we get, so the more we keep feeding that frustration. And really, in many times, is bringing us to a position, many times, of loneliness and hopeless, right? We're running, we feel like we're running this business, that I'm putting all my heart and all my soul into my students. And sometimes there's such a feeling of, I'm not being appreciated for all of the things that I'm doing. And this thing about running a business alone, without having people come alongside of you and helping, right? Which is very interesting, right? Because it's here. If we are teaching class, we say like, man, teaching a class is good. So the person comes and be part of the class. If someone says, hey, I'm training jiu-jitsu by myself with few buddies, we're going to be like, bro, it's going to be very difficult that you run jiu-jitsu. If you really want to learn jiu-jitsu, you should get out of that little garage and come to something that's more organized, so it's something that's more structured. And if the person wants to take to the next level, they go like, man, private lessons is a good way. You're going to come in this one-on-one model. So we preach this idea that we know is so beneficial on the learning of the skill of jiu-jitsu, learning the art of jiu-jitsu, no part of this regular class. We're professionals and all of that. Come do private lesson because it's tailored exactly to your game. But when it comes to us use the same, we are preaching that into our students, but when it comes to use the same mindset on the sense of, man, I really want to learn how to grow my business. And when I say growth, it's always important that we're not just thinking about just financially, right? It's grow the impact in life of the students. How can I grow? Talking about sustainability, how we can have a team and all of those things. So when it comes to the business, we go like, no, I'll figure it out on my own.
No, agreed. I agree 100%. And it's an ego thing too. It's like, since I'm a good instructor, I'll be a good businessman. And that any other profession we'd be laughed at, but it's true. It happens in this. I've been a sucker for that, to think, oh, I'll figure this out. I'll be able to go, I'm a self-starter. There's this concept of like, I'm a self-starter. I built my business from the ground up. All these, American dreams and ideas, which are all great and they're true things, but it's really knowing who to talk to about what you need to talk to them about, to find out things, to go and get information. We go to a library for a reason. We go to these places that have information. So finding a pool of that is super important, instead of reinventing the wheel, basically.
Absolutely. And, it can become so lonely. And we running a business, like we're trying, because the reality is we're putting all of our heart, all of our soul in that thing, because we love jiu-jitsu, we love helping people. Most of us, we have seen the transformational power that community and jiu-jitsu has. So we want to expand that into our students, but we can fall in that trap of loneliness, of trying to do things by ourselves. That is so discouraging, because here's the thing. We feel lonely, and after loneliness comes discouragement, and after discouragement comes hopeless. It's almost like I have no hope.
Yeah.
I have no hope. And it's maybe we're not communicating these things, but the reality is we are feeling that way. So the idea is maybe you can talk a little bit more about some of even your own personal frustrations about running the business, how sometimes it can feel very lonely and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, when I first, started my business, I mean, you had no idea. You trained jiu-jitsu, you kind of looked around at your instructors, like you were saying, and you're going, okay, this is how they do it. And you just kind of figured out, especially if you didn't have any kind of business experience, you're just like, okay, I get some mats. I have the information, been trained jiu-jitsu. I'm good with people. I help a guy here. I help a guy there. I've run a few classes. Man, I could do this on my own. That's great. That's the technical aspect of it. But the actual running the business, day-to-day operations, making sure you're paying your bills, you're paying yourself, you're doing your taxes, making sure that you're now sustaining and expanding a business is very difficult. The thing is that, when I first started, I was really frustrated and like, okay, is there a book out there I can read? And there's a few, but they were like written by like Taekwondo places and things like that. And I'm not knocking those arts, but like they're not jujitsu. It was different, Theirs was based on like memorizing forms and creating these systems that would motivate people outside of, actually having to perform athletically. And so it was like, man, this is a little bit different. And so then you try to take that and mold it onto this, and it just didn't work out right, especially culturally. And so, you try to reinvent the wheel and you try something, you fail, you try something else. And then pretty soon your students see you go like, you tried this for a little while and now you're trying this and then you're trying this. And they're like, man, do you even know what you're doing? Because they see, what you're doing on the mat, but then they see how you run your business and they're like, man, this guy don't know what he's doing. And you're like, yeah, I do, but you're not going to tell him that. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to get lucky here. And so it's frustrating because you don't know what to do and you don't know how to do it. And you don't know if you're doing it wrong until it's too late, and it's frustrating. And so there's this trial and error that happens, and you've got to have enough patience. You've got to have enough money to sustain those mistakes. In my time, man, I don't even want to admit the thousands and tens of thousands of dollars that I spent on softwares and things like that just didn't turn out. Before we did everything through the net, I bought physical softwares. I bought computer systems so I could scan cards. Why? Because I saw what gyms did. I saw what like Gold's Gym back in the day, they're not even in business anymore, right? I saw what Gold's Gym did. And I was like, ooh, I'll make this kind of Gold's Gym model work for my gym. I'll get all these things. And it's like at the end of the day, it was just so I could sustain a business, when in reality, I just want to teach jiu-jitsu. And it was only until I started figuring out that you don't have to have all these extra little things. You can actually just teach jiu-jitsu and have a thriving business. And that changed everything. But it took an understanding of a blueprint to go forward, knowing how to do it and what steps to take and where to start. That was another thing, is where do you start? There's so many different areas to start. Where do we begin?